No, recording. Yay. No kick out. So cool to see you in the flesh, man. Like, well,
I'm
video
here.
flesh, you know.
Kind of here.
Thank you for doing this. I was listening. I've seen a whole bunch of your stuff. I follow your work on LinkedIn, but I took a listen, particularly to the podcast you recently did with the Deborah Blackett from Z Energy. So some really nice pieces in there. And I caught up with Holly Bennett, who I know you deal with quite a bit.
Yeah, Holly's awesome. Crazy, but awesome.
Yeah. She, well, I introduced her to my nephew who now works with her. So,
oh, awesome.
Yeah, he's just an amazing young man and she's loving having him. So I'm really grateful that worked out so well. And heading along to their office opening in a couple of weeks. So there's, like normal Kiwis do, we're always 1 degree of separation.
I get it.
Yeah. So I don't know how much you know or don't know about this. My podcast is really about recruitment and career, but following some pretty spectacular career journeys, the squiggly line, lessons, but from a Kiwi perspective, because I don't think, like you're doing a great job of sharing those stories. And, I wanted to do some of the same when I pivoted from my last role into recruitment. And yours is one I definitely wanted to be able to share and amplify a little bit and just get to dig into myself because you're so freaking interesting.
Yeah, it's not many people have been able to crack it. A couple of people had a good chat, but every time they think they got it dialed, they're like, "What?" It's like,
I just think we're all onions, right?
Yeah.
So there's no one way. But yeah, fascinating.
We can go. Sorry, I've got a hard stop in 55 minutes, but we can go for gold.
Cool. Awesome.
Easy.
So generally start off, if you're comfortable, I'd love to do a collateral capture with you, just kind of saying who you are, what you do, that you're happy to be a guest here on Rosey on recruitment and career, and what you're kind of going to share about. And then we can jump into some questions and some chats if that's cool.
For sure.
So where you go.
Good everybody, my name is Robett Hollis and about to get into it with Rosey on recruitment to talk about a whole bunch of good things. Let's get into it.
Love it. Let's get into it. I did a bit of a planned intro just around, one of the things that strikes me is your authenticity, your real transparency around what you stand for and believe in. And that is something that I'm heartened to see more companies embrace, but definitely need some leaders out the front. Yeah, I was going to say we need some more leaders out the front like you, because it is the tall poppy syndrome. It's putting your head above the ground, right? So I just wanted to start off with, what does recruitment and career mean to you, since that's what this poddy is about?
Careers get undefined because it feels like the journey can't get put into one bucket. I always sort of feel, well, for starters, I'd obviously say that because I'm kind of, I'm unhireable, basically. I'm an HR nightmare. But I do feel that I just hate the idea of a bucket. I hate the idea of a title defining a whole human's existence. I kind of don't believe, like, I get career is what you do, but it's very loaded for me because I guess by full conflict of interest, I have to feel a certain way about it because I haven't been able to get that, like I haven't, I failed high school. I couldn't get into university, got no degrees, no anything. So I've kind of just, navigated the free flowing world of life in my own journey. And I think it's worked out potentially better in many situations than if I had gone down another path of trying to be a thing as a career or a thing. Now, these goals and careers are different, but for me, it's just a little bit of a loaded question because I hate when people, misplace position over a person because that doesn't define them of who they are and what they represent. So, loaded question. Sorry to start, but that's how I feel.
No, I agree. I think a lot of people felt that way coming out of COVID. So I was disestablished during that period, and you kind of get taken aback by understanding how deeply you tie your worth to what that title was or what you tried to achieve over 2 decades of working a particular way and ticking particular boxes, and found a group of people that had been through similar instances. And it was one of the reasons I wanted to get into recruitment, to really understand a whole person and show them, I'd pivoted in my past too, just that's possible. Like, what do you really want to do? It's a blank canvas now,
sets.
right?
Yeah, so I think as well, when your age changes and you're in different, or maybe not age changes, but maybe when you get into different phases of life, that same skill set translates so differently. Like, for example, a pro athlete that's been at an elite level that transitions into business, they can fit really squarely into a bunch of different potential environments that have got nothing to do with their sport. But there's this underlying thing of whether it's teamwork or leadership or motivation or glue or drive or focus or whatever,
mindset.
Resilience, exactly, whatever it may be. So, but then that changes as well as, it's like, builders that start building at 15 and by the time they're 35, they need to transition to that next thing. They still got the same skill sets, but, it just phases changes. That's all. So that's one of the other things that I feel is, the same skill set in an individual at a different phase in their life can mean 2 totally different things, and that's totally okay.
Yeah, it's funny. It segues very nicely into my next question, which focuses you really on this piece. So you grew up in a farm in Dargaville, which I thought was cool. I had dairy farmer friends in Matakawi, so you probably know where that is, where most in the country might not. You were in Fiji, then Aranui, Christchurch, represented New Zealand in both basketball and soccer. As you mentioned, you failed high school and travelled the world as a professional snowboarder. How did all of that prepare you specifically to transition into business? I know we talked about that skill transfer, but what did you take from that?
There's one line from Jay-Z, and it's, "I ain't a businessman, I'm a businessman." And
nice.
What it is for my head was, I'm not a businessman, which is one-to-one unscalable time. I'm a businessman. I'm a full platform scalable entity that can make money while I sleep, that can have different things rolling in a bunch of different, flows all over the show. And so for me, it was just changing the headspace of how I felt about and for me, when I was in snowboard world, I remember distinctly at 20 being like, I don't want to be 30 and having to jump off a flipping cliff to pay my rent. Like when you're a pro snowboarder at the time in that world, every day you almost die. And something that always sort of freaked me out a little bit was this idea of, well, I'm kind of at the mercy of, I'm rolling the dice every single day with my own future. Do I want to have control of? Not that you can't control business, but you roll the dice in other ways, but at least physically there's more safety and security. So that's something that I'd always been like. I've always played chess, so chess is a big kind of thing for me. And so I think about, I've thought since I was 12 or 13 when I started getting into it, long game, 5, 10 moves ahead. Like, what's the play? How does this position? Where does that go? What happens there with either relationships, opportunities, or whatever it may be? And that's one of potentially maybe the biggest disconnects of those that either think they know me or know me or whatever, is they don't realize how I'm thinking about things, because we don't, I guess, have the opportunities for conversations like this. But when I think about the long game on things, then everything sort of changes a lot differently. And so that's probably one of the biggest drivers that helped me, I guess, transition across, because before I actually peaked, I had already made the commitment to bail out and get into business. I got a silver medal at the world finals for snowboarding. Before the competition, I told 2 people that I was going to, regardless of the outcome, I was going to retire and bail. And they thought I was flipping nuts. And then I got silver. Everyone thought I was about to go in. And I was like, peace, I'm out. And they're like, what the fuck? What? And so, but that's the thing, you've got to, better say it. So maybe vision or preparation or mindset or whatever is probably one of the biggest sort of skill sets that helped me transition across, because I was thinking 10 moves ahead. Like right now, my brain's not even at 36. My brain's at 56, 60, 70, maybe. Like I'm already ahead.
So I guess that makes me wonder, because I know you're involved in so many things. So is that because you're agile and you're continuing to change, or because opportunities, new ones come up, but it's hard to let some of those that you're already involved with go? What's that process for you?
It's got better over time. I'm trying to think of it like shotgun to sniper. So when you're in your early 20s, you want to do everything. You try and shoot everything in one hit. And then, you realize
I'm
after you
shotgunning
got a
right
couple
now.
of wins,
Okay, I get you.
and then I'm trying to snipe it down of like, all right, cool, now this thing can pop or that thing, whatever. And then it becomes around, you've only got a certain amount of time in the day, and then what's going to be the biggest win for you with that time, commercially, culturally, for community, for others, for charity, for what, then it becomes prioritizing that thing, because you could, and recently I had to let go of one project, but I loved it. It was great. But the amount of energy and effort to get this single one income, I could probably do the same thing in one day over there. And it's like, well, in terms of your time, you sort of get to a spot and you start thinking about how you want to deploy that energy or that kind of that time capital. And so I've sort of started to transition my environment around, okay, well, let me reverse engineer what I want to do with my time first. And then how do I fill those gaps? And then so I'm kind of, I guess now, playing a bit of chess on how I play this next phase out till I'm 50. Because I've got a young family, 2 daughters under 3. That's my priority of any of this other shit. So I'm just kind of like, all right, well, what I do in the middle is up to me, but so I better make it count.
Yeah, that's such an interesting piece, because I think I deal with a lot of graduates or new to work people, and part of that is experience, right? So going out and shotgunning. But I found that I've done that at various stages in my career because I've pivoted. I love to learn and I love to connect with people. So you go out and you kind of get all this experience, but then it's snipering down. So it is that kind of out and in, and those experiences do enrich you. And sometimes you get something from them that is not commercial. It might not pay off for 10 or 20 years. It might only pay off in one project in the future, but it's still made an imprint on you, right?
Totally, 100%.
Yeah. You tackle some pretty big topics in your conversations, from business success through to things like domestic violence. So why is this type of conversation transparency important to you?
It's a great question. I feel it is important to talk about the uncomfortable thing first, or in public, because it empowers others to potentially do the same. And usually people don't have the tougher conversations or braver conversations in public because they are fearful about it's like a beefed up version of why CEOs or big leaders at businesses don't really comment with their own personal opinions on anything to do with on social media, because it may not be an accurate representation of the business. So there is a risk for them to have a personal opinion, which is the most stupid shit ever, right? Because titles are temporary.
We're all humans.
But I then feel when it comes to tougher things, people instantly default to let's not do that because they're afraid of the tougher honesty that will come out the other side, or the potential liability that comes out the side, or the HR that comes out the other side, or whatever. It's never that they don't feel it. It's always that they don't have enough bravery to do it. And so I will know things pop most of the time as if something's really gnarly in particular. I'll say it. There's piss or likes or comments on it, but there's heaps of views.
That frustrates me. Yeah.
And so then I'm like, okay, so you've engaged with it because you know what's up, but then what happens is the back channels pop. So you get messages or texts or calls or emails or private messages and whatever, and all of it. And so every time that happens, I know it resonates, because all I'm sort of saying is I just want others to be braver. I want them to be braver to have that conversation, like, because whether they're right or wrong, that's their truth. Like recently there's some other stuff popped up and people just were going hard. I'm like, cool, well, that's how they feel, great, but that's their truth. Like, fine, like, cool, you may be a flippin' muppet and you're an idiot, fine, but that's your truth right now. And so so for me, I kind of, I think also when you can stand in a room and you don't need anything from anyone genuinely, anything you say is going to be usually held with more either respect or actually more listened to, because there's not a conflict of interest of a power dynamic where something needs someone from the other side. It's just genuine, like, this is me, this is what I think. The views may and probably will change over time, and mine definitely have over the last 15 years, and they will continue to. But part of the reason for me anyway is if I'm long gaming it and I've got thoughts about things and society ends up adapting and changing to it, selfishly, I'm just getting to be historically correct time and time and time and time again. So my children's children, when they look through Facebook in 2100 or whatever it may be, they can see exactly what I thought about the exact same time, and they thought the insights of what culture was like in community and commerce and exactly what they take. And I think part of me doing what I'm doing isn't actually about me. It's like documenting our world right now, and it's then being the conduit for others' thoughts of that thing. And then just like right now, if I could you imagine going back and being like 1912 and watching a Facebook video of your 20-year-old grandparents like talking about, oh man, this flipping this AM radio is the shit, and oh man, they've got this talk back, like just documenting life, and so I just sort of feel that we're documenting the future learnings for others, and for me, I think this may get played in 100 years and it's still going to be there, so that's cool for me.
Yeah, I think so too. It's a representation, and you want to be on the right side of that with your values and beliefs. That fear piece is really important.
It exposes everyone if it's not, right? So fair piece.
It does. Yeah. So that fear piece, what do you want to do? Like, what would you say? How would you shake up some of those CEOs to get over that? Because some people are doing this successfully. I love how honest Rob Campbell is. He's been on my potty. He says some stuff which I just think a lot of other people, again, too fearful to say. And that's what I love about your sharing. It's authentic. It's to the point. It doesn't fluff around. So how can people start to speak their truth with more honesty?
Well, Rob's we're both very similar, where we're at a point where we can genuinely say what we think, and not that it can't, like, say with Rob.
The ramifications are different, possibly.
No one's questioning shit about Rob, because everyone that would is like, everyone that could say anything about him would be those that haven't done what he's done, that look like him, that want to be him, that actually aspire to be him yet, but haven't. So they don't have the right to that opinion because they haven't done what he's done. So shut your face. Yeah. And so he already wins by default before it, because whatever he says, unless it's someone who's done the same or more with more credibility or whatever, which is not many, I'm not saying he wins by default, but he's sort of won the game where he's like come up the chain through all the bullshit. And he's got to the top and he's like, cool. And now I'm here with my power, and this is my thoughts and opinions on it. And he flipping says it, and that's the coolest shit about him. And so me and Rob are real close, and I love it that he knows as well. I texted him the other day randomly. I said, "Do you have advisors at this point in your life? Like you're like 60 or 70 or some shit, right? Like, do you have advisors?" And he goes, "Nope, I roll solo." And I was like, "Well," and then I kind of said to him too. I was like, "Well, I guess it'd be tricky to listen to some like." Because for me to listen to him, that's a mentor, right? Because he's 20, 30 years ahead of my game. I'm the young buck still on the come up, blah, blah, blah. I know how the game works. But for him, and I said to him, I was like, what? So I guess you're not like asking 95-year-olds in the rest time about cryptocurrency and what they should do for the future of finance? And then he goes, he's like, it's not that I choose, it's that I choose not to listen. It's like, I could, but I won't. And so it was just like, he's just got to spot his content. And so to rewind it back, the difference that they have is leverage.
Yes.
Like he has leverage to be able to say that thing because he's done it. And I was talking there's this young buck entrepreneur who's gone through some shit recently, and he's going through a bad little spot, and he rang me up, had a chat with him yesterday. And I said, look, you're a young buck, you're doing some dumb shit, you're burning bridges, whatever. It's like, you're going to have to try and obviously mend those, and you're not going to mend them through you're not going to mend them through talking. You're going to mend it through earning your way back through
actions,
success, through actions, right? But there's in my sort of head when I was sort of thinking about saying his scenario is, he hasn't executed anything yet because he's a young buck talking shit that hasn't done anything. So shut your face. Yeah. The difference is if you can talk the shit and actually then have done some stuff. Then it's like, for me, when my media company Frontside was acquired by Saatchi & Saatchi, one of my advisors said the first thing to me, he goes, look, everyone now knows you're crazy, but not nuts. And there's a difference.
Yes.
Because you can't have done there's a line. And you can't have done what you've done if you were nuts. You can still be crazy. So now you're crazy, but not nuts. And then you're more lethal because it kind of gives you this like free reign to be like, well, this is, yeah, stuff this. I'm not changing shit now. Like if I've been able to win wearing a $7 t-shirt and rocking flipping my Jordans and shit, or my Air Force Ones or whatever it may be, I'm gonna keep doing it. If I'm gonna keep talking this, I'm gonna keep talking this way. Like, why do I need to change shit now? Because
unpredictability shakes them, right?
dude, well, let's flip it the other way. If I rolled up and back to New Zealand now, and I come off the plane, I'm in a flipping 3-piece suit with a little pocket square and shit, and then I come into a meeting and be like, "Hey guys, it's great to be here." Everyone be like, "What the
what?"
Yeah,
who does he think he is?
Being, exactly. The point being, they would know that I'm not being authentic to me because that's not how I am.
Yes.
The second I do it, I would lose all credibility because I'm not being authentic. Now, that's not to say I don't like ball out in a suit if it's like respect for the occasion or whatever. But
totally.
I just think if you can win your own way and you then win,
so powerful.
You've clearly done something right. Like, do you stuff the rest of it? So to answer your question would be, until you got leverage, you can't do shit. Like, I remember once before such a thing, a friend of mine said to me, he's like, yeah, like, you know, you're pretty good at this stuff, but you don't know what it actually takes to do it at scale, like these bigger boys. Until you've seen inside the machine, you don't have the right to that opinion. Because basically, I was going through this phase of stuff all these big agencies are screwing everyone and all this bullshit, blah, blah, blah. I was just like off it, right? And I was right because the outputs were totally correct. People were getting overcharged. It was a bullshit. He said, well, until you see inside why they're like that, you don't have a right to your opinion. And so, you know, I got on the machine, I got to see how, and then I was like, now I see. So now I have a lot more empathy and understanding for how these big machines are the way. And, you know, they have systems and processes in place because there's 110,000 employees in 80 different countries and a bunch of people can hide and a bunch of people can be doing bad shit. It's like, you know, I got a lot more empathy and understanding for how big things are big, but then also made me realize like why they get big and then why they get slow. So that's a roundabout way of answering.
That context is so important. I deal a lot with FinTech New Zealand businesses and also with the banks, and I've been in payments and expense management. So we've had this conversation a lot where FinTechs are going, we can do this in-house in 2 days. Why does it take them 2 months? I'm like, dudes, like there's reasoning. It sucks, but that's how they can be where they are.
I get it.
I wanted to pick up on that point around mentoring too, because I'm involved with that with her career. But what about some reverse mentoring? You know, this whole piece of there are new graduates coming through, brand new ideas. What do you think about that and embracing? Obviously, they haven't proven themselves yet, but just this different perspective of thought and frame of reference that can be quite unbridled because they're not cynical about the business world or processes yet.
They're naive as shit because the real world hasn't punched them in the face yet.
That's the more honest way to put it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, man. So I kind of think of myself. I've got a video about I'm about to put out. Actually, it's called like about being the middle child. Like I kind of feel now, like because J. Cole put out an album, and one of the lines in this album, in the song called "Middle Child," he was just like, "I was just in the lab with 21 Savage. I'm about to go meet Jigga for lunch." And he's saying, "I was in the studio with 21 Savage, the artist, and now I'm about to go have lunch with Jay-Z." Well, Jay-Z, 21 Savage is like 21, Jay-Z's 50. And he's kind of saying he feels like the middle child because he's this bridge in between these two generations, right? And so I'm 36 now, so I'm like, I'm not a young spring chicken anymore, but I'm not like washed up and off the rooftop. So I'm like, well, what does what does me being the middle child for this business stuff? Like I still mess with entrepreneurs and I still like young bucks in high schools and all sorts of shit. Like that's where it's at for me forever. Like stuff the old dudes because the old dudes have done it. The young bucks that's who needs more of it backwards. But what I think anyway is I've been really lucky to be really inquisitive around multiple things at the exact same time. Like lots of different shit right now. Like I could go deep on 12 or 15 different things and I love all of it. And there's no reason when someone say, oh, you need to be an expert. I'm like, stuff that. What I find the ninja move for that for me is I take like learnings or snippets or these kernels from one thing and I can thread them through all these different other worlds and then it gives me a different insight on this thing over here, right? And then for young bucks, they're just another strand to that because they'll have a different creative idea about something that may be totally disconnected from the rest of my world, but it actually fits over here. And then so my brain, I'm like, okay, boom. So I just think of it like the more you consume at a shotgun approach, for me anyway, the more I kind of have a wider perspective on many, many things, which is why if we want to talk about politics and money or culture, content, creativity, commerce, flipping, whatever the shit is, like I'm all in, and I can genuinely speak on it because because I live it, and so I think you get way more upside when you've got the ability to, I call it lenses, like the camera, right? Like you change the lens and you wear different. Is it like a wide angle lens and you see super wide and you see everything on one, or is it just like laser focus with like a long, telephoto lens that's just zoomed into 200 macro, whatever it is, right? Like I think of it like
love that analogy.
When you can have the ability to be like, okay, let's just zoom out for a second, chuck the wide angle on.
Yeah.
All right, now let's zoom out. Now let's look at it this way. And that gives you so much more insight than so much other stuff that exists in the world, because it gives you when you have perspective, it gives you insights. And when you have insights, you potentially have more ammo. And in business, where it's about brain, if you've got more ammo, you roll the dice a little bit more in your favor, And that's how I kind of think of it. Once again, back to the chess thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I love that. I know from listening to some of your stuff that you're an energy person, and I go off a lot of my own instincts to feel very connected to people. What do you think businesses with toxic environments are doing wrong? I know this is a general question. And how can they turn their type of culture around? Like, where would you start?
So I've seen a bunch, and I've been through a little bit. Not like, I haven't run 10,000 person companies or whatever, but I've definitely met more than enough Karens. So I think in my view on this is, regardless of the cost, gas the toxicity.
Okay.
When you have any ounce of like cancerous energy that's just sucking away value and IP and thought for everything else, stuff it. Like I remember Nathan McCullum, ex-cricketer, so he's one of the bros, and he was talking about, we had this power moves retreat. I got 70, 80 entrepreneurs in my kind of inner circle type thing. We went on a hide at the Hilton down in Queenstown, went down Chatham House rules, and we just kind of shot the shit on a bunch of stuff. He had a real interesting take on how he thought about hiring and firing for a bad staff member. He goes, if I've got he's like, I fire them in a second. I was like, and they were like, oh, like, what's the reason? He goes, oh, it's a simple formula. Well, if I've got 10 crew on the job and one of them's toxic, will that one person take away 10% of efficiency across the 9 of them? And we was like, yep. It's like, cool. So then it makes commercial sense and financial sense and mathematical sense that if you divide the 100% by the 10 people, and if they decrease by 10%, then clearly if you get rid of them and no one else replaces it, probably you've got more positivity than what you had to stuff them. And I was like, holy shit, that's genius.
That is quite genius.
So then, let's say if you got 20 people and 2 of them are just shit, then you're like, okay, cool. Yeah. So I've got 10% of weak links. Now, are those 10% of people decreasing the efficiency or the capability or the upside of these other 18 by more than 10%? Probably. Okay, so they need to go. And then you work the numbers, right? And then it's like, well, could you capably deal with 3%? Probably. 20%? Probably not. So then it almost becomes like a bank doing a risk analysis of percentage of energy, decoding it for the team. But basically, the fewer people there are and the more toxicity there is, by default, they need to go.
And is that, so I've had this conversation with a couple of people, being in recruitment, you do this a lot. Is that attitude or is that skill?
Attitude.
Thank you. That's what I wanted you to say. But I'm like 100% it's attitude, because some of these people with the skill level, they are pricks and they ride that leverage. And storm clouds are not, I absolutely agree. Storm clouds just ruin everything.
Too is when you get to one person's toxic energy could kill a room of 100 if they're smart.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right.
Because if they're really smart in the way they'll pick apart this, they'll plant a little seed of doubt around things. They'll do a little thing, and it's like
that's right.
It's calculated, manipulated. I've seen this shit. I've had one scenario. There's one situation I'm involved with at the moment, and I'm from the outside in, and I'm kind of picking out what's happening before it's happening, because I know the energy of this one person. I'm like, okay, they're probably going to backdoor this to do that. They're probably going to do this. And once again, it comes down to chess, because in chess, you reverse engineering what you think they're going to do based on the energy that they have. And then you can use that to pre-mortem incidents. So instead of waiting for it to all turn to shit and then being like, oh yeah, like this is what happened, pre-mortem at the start of like, if this is going to fail, how's it going to fail? It's like, okay, I picked one out. The one that I'm talking about recently, I picked it out 18 months ago. I was like, this founder and that person are probably going to do this, and then the energy is going to do that, and then and then like literally in 18 months, it's just like flipping clockwork. So when you can approach, the point is when you can understand people and their drivers and their intentions and how they operate, you can pretty much guarantee the outcome of what you think is going to happen. So
I'm hiring for a small business at the moment, and this hire is crucial because it is a small team and they're very collaborative. And so I get that. I've worked in a small team before, and I have had great experiences. And where one terrible hire has ruined everything. So I think so. The next question, where you've said you would, quote, rather have someone with an A player heart, B player skill, which is what we're touching on. Given that, what would be your process and recommendations when recruiting for a hiring manager to find that heart?
Did I say that? It sounds real good.
You have said that. You rather have someone with an A player heart, B player skill. I was like, that's awesome. I'm writing that one down.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, you're that good, Robett. You're that good.
No, I just my problem that I've got, and this just gets me into trouble a lot, is I don't really think through what I'm saying. I just say it and then I forget. Yeah, and then I just forget. I'm just on to the next thing. I'm like, oh shit! And then sometimes I'll have like some bangers that come back, and they're like, "That's actually like really good." Who said
that? Was like, good.
I was like, but it's like 95% average and 5% bangers. So I'm like, I'll take it.
But hiring managers are looking for that. How do they find it?
I always find, maybe this is just me, that whenever you enter a situation that has power uneven, you never get the real person, right? Like, let's say I desperately want a job, and you're going to sweep floors at whatever. It's like, oh yeah, I've done 10 years of that. Oh yeah, cool, I can do it with my eyes, because oh yeah, blah, blah. You're never getting the real person, because they have a direct conflict of interest to what they want the outcome to be, because you control the power.
You're getting their sales rep.
Yeah, they're getting their sales rep. Like, that's that chameleon shit. And you never can see the truth until that power's away. Until, let's say they've got the job, and then they don't need to stress anymore because they got it. That's when you see the real person. And in agency world, the classic would be, you never get the person's real opinions about anything at the office, and it'd be at Sales Street at flipping 3 a.m. after they had their 6 beer, and then they're just like, fuck, blah, 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 blah. And that's them, right? So what I'm saying is, well, why not make it flat of like who you are to what you is? That just makes life way easier, instead of having like, I've got a friend of mine. He's one of my good mates, but he's got a public, he's publicly known, but he's also privately disconnected from his public image. And I'm like, you almost are like a chameleon, because you have to go out and you have to put this front on of like what you think this thing is, and then all you want to do is just go drink beers with the boys and talk shit. Like, that must stuff you up more so than that. And so the cost of that comes at a cost, because we're truly authentic to you with it. It's like, well, a lot of people aren't going to like that. A lot of people aren't going to engage with it. So then I think it's almost the other way of like, find a spot that genuinely lets you. Because one thing that pisses me off about corporates and shit is they'll go, bring your whole self to work, be authentically you. And it's like, but that person who's saying that, the majority of the time, they're not doing that, because they're being a chameleon because of the shell that they've got, because they're actually a ... So I'm like, well, if you're faking it trying to tell me to be real, but then you're faking it, so what are we doing here?
Like, and then you'll judge it too. And you'll judge my real.
Yeah. And then so I'm kind of like, I'd rather deal with like the authentic crazy and navigate through the chaos, but at least I know what it is. That's why I think when you can front foot all your bullshit, people already know whether they like you. They already know if you can execute or not. The only thing they don't know is if they can trust you or not. So the majority of times I'm doing anything, if I sit down with someone and it's the first time thing and they're looking to do something, I already know what the gig is. The gig is, look, if you've decided to take this meeting, you already flipping know what I think about, how I'm going to look, talk, act. You know, I'm going to think about a million different things. You know how I'm going to roll, and you already know what I've done because you've got Google. So the only thing that we're trying to do here is you're just trying to figure out if I can trust you or not.
Trust.
That's it. And so how I kind of navigate it is I like think of it like 8 Mile, where, and I've said, you know, a couple of times, the little example is, you know, at the end of 8 Mile with Eminem, the rapper, and at the end of it, they have this rap battle, and he wins because he destroys himself first. And he says all the bad shit about himself. He's like, I'm this, I'm that, I suck, blah, blah, all the rest of it. And then the other person's got no ammunition against them, so he wins.
Yeah.
He wins. So I think when you can front foot all that crazy shit first and be like, look, I'm super loose and nuts, but I'm insanely driven and maniacally focused when I want to get a goal because I'm goal driven for it. Sweet. This is how I'm going to roll. This is how I'm going to act. Like, I would rather, if I was anyway, like, how much more better would a hire be if someone just rolled straight in and be like, look, dude, this is who I am. I love boozing on like Friday nights. I send it and I'll see you on Monday morning, but I'll be here at 7 a.m. and I go flipping hard. I'm going to swear I get loose. Like my dress is pretty average, but I'm a weapon on Excel and I can do this. And I can how refreshing would that be instead of like, here we go. And this is my thing. Like, because then instantly in your head, like not that weird attracts weird, but like if, let's say for argument's sake, I was trying to hire a general manager who is literally nothing like me at all. Right. If I'm that person to try and get to me, the first thing I'd say is like, look, I'm literally the 100% exact opposite of you, which is why I'm absolutely perfect for this. I'm extremely analytical, detail focused. I do this. I'm over analytical to the minute, like just whatever. I'd be like, yeah, that makes total sense. You know,
it's not me.
Fun enough. But it's like, but I'm fun enough that I can, have a few beers with the crew. But at the same time, I'll do damage and do 20 hours straight when shit needs to get done because I get shit done. I'll be like, yes. And, I think I always feel it's a bit of a one-way street when people are trying to get hired because they think that everyone above them that's potentially hiring is the same type of thing. It's like, no. You being a junior executive at for argument's sake, let's say a DB Breweries might be totally different to Fonterra, right? The culture of those two things might be totally different, but you're going for the same role. And I think, or 100%. And so I just think that too much of the time people going for roles think that every one of that role is the same, when it's totally not. So they need to look for the culture fit first, because the last thing you want to do is proactively go somewhere where it's not aligned at all with what you do, and it's just going to create resentment and bullshit, and then next thing you know, you hate it and you bail and leave. That's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, no, it's true. I have met people through my career and they're like, you're always so happy. Like, is that a thing? And I'm like, look, I would be too exhausted to be anything other than who I am. Like, this is it. You're going to get all of it because there's a lot of energy going on in here. So people that need to do that change of face, I don't understand how that happens. Like, my high highs and my lows are low, and I'll share as much of that of where I'm at. It's not saying you're not experiencing things, but I think you're doing it authentically within the band of who you are. And that's the important lesson, right?
The key there, though, is just as so many people are not brave enough to say what they actually think, even more people are too scared to show when it's bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's this Instagram. Sorry, you go.
I was going to say, I had a post I put out in my socials today. So I try and post every day along my Rosey and recruitment and career, just some lessons and insights. And it's this little cardboard red robot man saying, I tried my best with a broken heart. And I lost a really big pitch this week. And it was, there's lessons for that. I really wanted it to work out. It didn't. I still think I would have been amazing. That's fine. But you sit in the disappointment, or you learn from it and, go to the next step, being your superstar self again. It's that lesson. I think obviously being a sales, I've got resilience. That's something I've learned over also my childhood and some of the challenges and social issues there. But it's sharing that, I had some bad shit go down this week, man. It's not always great and fun.
Totally. And I think that's one of the biggest dangers on social is I feel it's, for me anyway, it's a duty that I have now to show all sides of it. So there's been times if it's a gong show, I'll be like, gong show. Because the danger that you have is if you just preach the thing of like the rah-rah, life's all good, gravy, 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 and that's all it is, that's not the actual truth. Because sometimes it's a fucking shit show. Sometimes you wake up and your energy's stuffed. There's sometimes like yesterday I had one and it was kind of a good day, but something was just kind of off. Like it was like, did I waste a bunch of time? Was this really like cool? What was I didn't know the answer. And so I just said to wife as she got home, I was like, I'm just going to go like to the golf range right now. I'm just going to go. I'm just going to go golf. And she's like, all right. And so I just went out and I walked, and not that there was anything sort of wrong, but it was more just like, this is just what I need to do to reset me right now. And then came home fine,
Yeah.
So
no, that's the night it happened. I'm doing dry July, so I was like the first time in 22 days, I was like, really, I could have done with the drink, but I ran a scaldingly hot bubble bath and I watched some MasterChef and I, like just the things that I knew would make me happy. And the next day got back on the phone first thing, you got to do that. Yep. This is a long question. I'm just really interested around your thoughts. So in my work, I work with an organization called Her Career as well. We're working with entry and mid-level women to fix the broken rung and break through those glass ceilings, create connection and support for women. And it's all about climbing the career ladder internally instead of entrepreneurs like yourself to executive positions. So some of it's inspiring, but some of it is also, it's really slow to shift, and we feel that. Now, I know one of your messages is #yes-to-success, and you're working to destroy that tall poppy syndrome. But what other positive lessons will you be providing to your daughters, given they're young, as they grow to develop their resilience for whatever it is that they want to do in life?
It's a bloody great question.
Thank you. I did work on that one.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm just going to put the charger in. Give me one sec.
Yeah, sure.
So, one, I'm not in a place to, I guess, speak on women up the rung ladder because I'm not a flipping woman. I haven't gone up the rung of any of that stuff. But as a middle-aged father with two daughters under 3, and growing up, this is always such a funny one for me because this is where people kind of get a bit tripped on it around, like I'm rah-rah with the boysies and I like all that shit, right? But like I grew up, older sister, younger sister, my dad had double brain hemorrhage at 11, so I was essentially man at house 11. My wife is one of 3 sisters, and I've got 2 daughters under 3. So it's like there's more than enough around my life. There's more than enough. I get that shit. So so funny enough, like a couple of weeks ago, my 3-year-old we're playing around in the house and they were trying to do this ballerina thing, so trying to run and do a little jump, and then she goes, "Oh, I can't do that." I'm like, "Oh, why can't you do it?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah, only boys do that. Girls can't do that." And I was like, "Stop this shit." I was like, No, you can do absolutely anything. Look, let's do it together. That's not just, and I just went down this whole thing, and then she then ran and did the jump thing. And it was like, I don't ever want a single ounce of anything to get into her head to make her think she can't do anything at all, ever, full stop. Like even the one she's like yesterday, a couple of days ago, she was like, "Oh, I can't do this. Oh, I can't. Oh, we're trying to we made these cool little put some paint in these little hang up things that go on the window. They sort of hang down and whatever. She put paint on it, and she was trying to get like the small string to go through, and she's like, "I can't do it. I can't do it." And I was like, "No, you can't do it yet. You can't do it yet." Yeah. And so we keep trying. And I don't want ever to there be a mental handbrake which she puts on herself that isn't put on her at all, ever. Like regardless what it is. And so for that's, I guess, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but this is just my truth. I guess I don't want the lens of my daughters to think the world of us as this when it's actually that, ever.
Yeah.
Right? That's like, no, stuff that, it's this. Oh, look at, and then you go, because then look at this YouTube, clip of a 6-year-old playing the drums. That's a Mozart. You look at Simone Biles doing gymnastic stuff. You look at so-and-so doing whatever. And then that's when you start to see them, right? And so for me, I just think it's almost, so that's for the daughters on the come up. Now, within the business context, I think, now this is just a personal thing, and I'm kind of a little bit, I guess, hypocritical because I probably fit into this age bracket as well. I hate on LinkedIn how it's a bunch of 40 to 50-year-old white dudes talking the same shit, right? And
yes,
there are so, like, because I've got all these female friends, and I was like, why don't you go and unleash on this shit? And they're like, oh, no, it's not blah, blah, blah. And there's this fear thing, right?
It's also so time consuming and energy consuming.
Yeah, but I remember I was at CES with Michelle Dickinson and Joe, her husband, and we were having dinner, and she said a passing comment that stuck with me for years so far. She goes, oh, yeah, the problem with this conference, look around. I was like, I didn't really see it. It's like, it's 95% men. And I was like, holy shit, you're right. And she was like, minus the promo girls, which are paid for, this is 90% men. And I was like, that's a bit stuffed up. And she goes, the danger is, what will our society look like if 95% of if all our decisions are made by 95% of men? And I was like, holy shit, you're right. We're going to have this isn't what our society actually represents. So I think there's a dangerous echo chamber that happens on LinkedIn, where if it's, let's say for argument's sake, it's 95% men aged, not just white men, but the ones that I've seen has predominantly been, let's just for argument's sake, it's 95% men that age between 40 and 60 that control 90% of the messaging, the media, the narrative, the ideas, the thoughts, the opinions of what you consume and that you think is the build of business. I see LinkedIn, I see business, I then see I just get flooded with the majority of all the stuff. Sooner or later, that starts to take an impact on it. And I think that's whack. I think it's bullshit.
Subconsciously, it's there.
100%. And I proved this when I moved to Canada and I was living there snowboarding, and I don't give a shit about ice hockey. I couldn't care about ice hockey. Like, it's just, I was like, whatever. It is on all day, every day. It is 90% of the oxygen is talking about flipping hockey. I swear to God, by the flipping third month, I was like coming home early from shredding to sit down and make sure the Canucks are playing so-and-so, and I can sort of see it. I'm like, how did this happen? And it happened because they won by default because they owned up all the attention in my headspace.
Exposure,
So to answer it, I think that there just needs to be more and more braver female voices and Māori voices and Pacifica voices and LGBTQ voices and any voices that's not what we've already seen, because the danger I feel in society is if everyone thinks that society is based off this one lens, then that's actually not a true representation of what we have, and then that causes conflict.
Because they try and fit themselves in that,
100%. And so that's what I would say as well. So any female or those minorities, whatever, that are in power or position, use that to flex and create as many different breadcrumbs for others as possible to try and find. That's what I feel. I feel it's a duty for them, which is why I do so much of the stuff I do. I feel it's a duty that I have to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. And this is why one of the reasons why I created this podcast. I'd been a co-host on our Her Career podcast. But when Holly and I caught up recently, we both discovered we were writing articles for Business Desk New Zealand. So they've got a new section coming out. It's coming out this week. So I'm writing on recruitment. Holly's writing on lobbying. And I was just like, this is freaking awesome. Got two Māori women who are, talking about really important issues within New Zealand and giving SMEs advice and steps and practical outcomes for business. And hopefully if we can support them and do that and keep writing these articles and be at the forefront and share our learnings and experiences, it can widen that door a little bit.
100%. That's good. And whether it's right or wrong, it's your truth, but it's a different lens, and we just need more lenses,
Yeah. I agree. So we've got kind of 7 minutes left. I'll grab one more question and then go to the end. So I think this will be an interesting one to hear from you. If you could make one change to support SME New Zealand businesses right now in New Zealand, what would it be?
Genuine collaboration for education and growth. The majority of small business owners are stuck in their own bubble of their own world, with everything 360 consuming them, instead of realizing the person next to them who's a small business is doing the exact same thing, and the person left them is doing the exact same thing. And so you've got this fragmented alignment where there are these thousands or hundreds of thousands of these small micro bubbles with everyone in their own bubble going through the same issues of HR, staffing, marketing, cash flow, whatever. Because as soon as you're a small business, it's all on you. You're the end-to-end 360 workshop, and you may be awesome at accounting, but you may suck at sales. You may be awesome at sales, but you may suck at back-end admin. You may suck at logistics. You may suck at whatever it is. And weirdly enough, people don't realize that 1 + 1 actually equals 3. Because when you're one to yourself, it's 0 because it's all you know. When it's 1 + 1, it's like, then you know that, and I know this. There's something new. That's value. And when there's value created, then that helps everyone. So I think it's the overarching thing that I think within all these stuff that we're talking about, whether it be, young bucks going for jobs or females trying to get louder in the marketplace or small business owners, it's bravery. It comes down to bravery. It comes around internal bravery to either ask a question and feel stupid. Like I was in a meeting just before I was, someone said some word I didn't, xenophobia. Didn't know what that shit was. And then in the middle of the interview, I'm like, hey, can you just what does that shit mean? They're like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, cool. And we just keep going on with it, right? But if I didn't ask, I don't know. And they keep talking about this thing. Context. I don't know what they're talking about. And I'm like, sounds good, bro. Mean. And so, I don't know what that shit meant. But it's the bravery, to have internal bravery to ask the dumb question or to actually just, say what you feel or to, just play the game differently. And people just don't do that. People just would rather sit there and stay quiet and the same shit happens. So it's reliable data equals reliable results. Same shit equals the same shit.
Yeah, leveraging networks. You're right. We have them here in New Zealand in a way that other countries are envious of, and we're just not using them in the best way possible.
They feel shame to not know the answer. They feel shame to say, I've got, I did this one, this little Power Moves forum thing. I got together 10 of my buddies in business and a bunch of the boys, right? Put them through, and we did Chatham House Rules thing. And one of the biggest issues that actually came up in Chatham House Rules was how they can navigate being a better manager for female staff. Now, where else would they go to try and talk about that shit? At the pub? How do I deal with Sally and the shit she's going on? I'm trying to, it's like, they're talking about, you got $20 on the game this weekend? Mean. They're not talking about that shit. And so I just think I think any small business owner in New Zealand needs to realize that everyone else who's running a small business doesn't have it figured out. They've all got weak spots and they've all got shit that they don't know what's up. And funnily enough, if you can create more forums where you can actually have open conversation and dialogue about what's actually going on, you may be able to help each other because what you're awesome at, but they don't want to, they're fearful to sound like they don't know what they're doing or they don't know what's up. And that's okay because we all don't. That's the flipping point. If you did, you'd be flipping, 1,000 employees and charging away. But if you're just ticking along small, you don't know everything. Even the big guys don't know everything. So that would be just enough bravery to ask the dumb question, to stand what, my mum always used to say, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Actually knowing what you stand for. Done.
That is a great way to end this. I know you had a hard finish at 55. I'm just going to stop the recording so that we can capture it before you log off, if that's okay. But I want to thank you so much for your time. That was amazing.
Sure. Hopefully that